What it is, YouTube? It's your boy Tokyo here. Today we're back at it again with another reaction video. Today's video we got a little something different. I ain't gonna lie, well, kind of not really, kind of different, kind of not, kind of. No, I did some. I think I did something like this before. It's kind of like the how people pass and all that type of shit. But we got another one of those type of videos because I like these type of videos. These videos kind of interesting to me. But we got how every famous black activist died. This is gonna be something different. I ain't gonna lie. There's like some I didn't really know were activists for real, and some I didn't really recognize. I ain't gonna lie. There's some I do recognize, but there's some I don't recognize. I ain't gonna lie. Well, we about to go ahead and learn some shit. We about to learn how these people passed and how they gave us freedom that we got today. So, with that being said, about to go ahead and check out this video. This is by who the fuck is this by? This is by the Red Stickman. I'm pretty sure. Yeah, the Red Stickman. Link's gonna be in the description down below. And yeah, about to go ahead and check this out. I don't really know what to say.
Case 1. Martin Luther King Jr. Martin Luther King Jr. was born on January 15, 1929 in Atlanta, Georgia, the son of a Baptist minister and the grandson of another. He earned a doctoral degree from Boston University, won the Nobel Peace Prize at age 35, and became the most recognized leader of the American civil rights movement. In the spring of 19...
Bro, I learned about, I'm sorry for pausing for so soon, but I learned about Martin Luther King, like, damn near my whole entire life. I think he was, like, one of, like, the first activists that I known. I didn't really know about Malcolm X until, like, probably, like, a couple years later. And, like, even with that, like, you didn't really, like, I don't know if, like, it was, like, my teachers didn't really, like, know too much about Malcolm. But, like, they knew a lot about, MLK. A lot. Nigga, we'll have fucking documentaries of the nigga. They'll play. We'll have, like, the story. You remember, like, I don't know if y'all remember the My Friend Martin. Like, I remember seeing that shit when I was, like, 4 years old, bro. And I still remember that shit, bro.
1968, King traveled to Memphis, Tennessee, to stand with more than 1,300 black sanitation workers on strike. Two of their co-workers, Eckel Cole and Robert Walker, had been crushed to death inside a malfunctioning garbage truck while sheltering from the rain. The city had refused to replace the equipment for years. King saw their fight as the heart of his next campaign, a planned march of all of America's poor on Washington, D.C., demanding economic justice. On the night of April 3rd, 1968, King spoke before thousands at Mason Temple in Memphis and gave what would be his final speech. Bomb threats had followed his flight from Atlanta. He addressed them directly, told the crowd he had been to the mountaintop, that he might not get there with them, but that as a people, they would reach the promised land. He stepped off the stage and went to bed. The following evening, April 4th, at 6:01 p.m., King stepped onto the balcony of room 306 at the Lorraine Motel, a black-owned hotel where he always stayed in Memphis. He called down to musician Ben Branch in the parking lot below. "Make sure you play Take My Hand, Precious Lord in the meeting tonight. Play it real pretty." A single .30-06 rifle bullet struck him in the right cheek, shattered his jaw, severed his spinal cord, and lodged near his left shoulder blade. His closest friend, Reverend Ralph Abernathy, ran from the room and cradled his head. King never responded. He was pronounced dead at 7:05 p.m. He was 39 years old. The autopsy found that King's heart was in the condition of a 60-year-old man, aged by 13 years of bombings, death threats, and a secret FBI campaign that included planting bugs in his hotel rooms and sending him an anonymous letter in 1964, urging him to end his own life. In 1979,
like I said, how about suicide? What the fuck?
And concluded there was a likelihood of conspiracy. In 1999, a civil jury found that governmental agencies had played a role in his death. James Earl Ray, who had pleaded guilty to the shooting, recanted 3 days later and died in prison in 1998. No government employee was ever charged. Case 2.
And it's like, it's so fucked up. And I'm already knowing, like, probably half of these niggas, like, killers, walked free. And it's fucked up, bro. There's no justice for us. Like, as much as all these motherfuckers try to get justice for us, They didn't get justice for their death, bro. I said they died in prison or like someone else killed them or some shit, which is like street justice, yeah, but like it's not real justice.
Malcolm X.
We need to see people
Malcolm
in prison,
X was
nigga.
born Malcolm Little on May 19, 1925 in Omaha, Nebraska. His father was killed when Malcolm was 6, and his family always believed white supremacists were responsible. Malcolm spent time in prison as a young man, emerged as a minister for the Nation of Islam, a black Muslim organization that called for black self-determination and separation from white America, and became one of the most powerful voices for black liberation in the country. By 1964, he had broken with the Nation of Islam and its leader, Elijah Muhammad, after learning that Muhammad had fathered children with multiple young secretaries. After a pilgrimage to Mecca, Malcolm returned to America and began building a new organization, the Organization of Afro-American Unity. Death threats came constantly. 1 week before his assassination, on February 14, 1965, his home in Queens, New York, was firebombed at 2:35 in the morning. His wife and 4 daughters escaped. On February 21st, 1965, Malcolm walked onto the stage of the Abu Dhabi Ballroom in Washington.
Damn, this nigga house got bombed a week before his death? What the fuck, yo?
Washington Heights, Manhattan,
This
before
shit is
approximately
crazy.
400 people. A man in the crowd suddenly stood and shouted at another across the room, a planned distraction. As the audience turned to look, Malcolm raised his hands and said, "Be cool, brothers, be calm." In that moment, a man rushed the stage and fired a sawed-off shotgun into Malcolm's chest from about 8 feet away. 2 more men charged forward with handguns. Malcolm X was struck by 21 separate gunshot wounds. His wife, Betty Shabazz, 7 months pregnant with twins, was in the audience and screamed, "They're killing my husband." Malcolm was pronounced dead at 3:30 p.m. at Columbia Presbyterian Hospital, directly across the street. He was 39 years old.
And he died at 39 too?
Was that 9 FBI informants were confirmed to have been in that room. The FBI had spent years running a secret campaign to destroy the relationship between Malcolm and the Nation of Islam, and a Chicago FBI field office later admitted it had deliberately created the feud that got him killed. 2 of the 3 men convicted of the murder were almost certainly innocent. They served a combined 42 years in prison before a New York court officially exonerated both of them in November 2021. No FBI agent was ever charged. Case 3.
Bro, what the fuck? This shit is... And this shit was recent too. That was literally like 5 years ago. Bro, and nobody... I didn't even hear nothing about that shit. Yo, what the fuck? Bro, these niggas were... They said before, you can't trust the government, bro.
Fred Hampton. Fred Hampton was born on August 30th.
I know he died at like 21.
In Summit, Illinois. By age 20, he had organized the Illinois chapter of the Black Panther Party, a political organization that ran free breakfast programs for children, free medical clinics, and legal aid in Chicago's poorest neighborhoods. He was building alliances between black, white, and Latino street gangs, convincing them to stop fighting each other and push for better conditions from the city instead. FBI Director J. Edgar Hoover had called the Black Panther Party the greatest threat to the internal security of the country. Hampton was...
But why though? Like, they say that. I've been hearing that. But why? How? All they want to do is just live. They not, like, bro. Like, from what I've been hearing and from what I've heard in these stories, black people have not done any harm. Black people has not done anything. They haven't killed nobody out of ill intent. If they kill somebody, it's because it was out of self-defense or some shit. Like, you feel me? How is that dangerous? You're after me. You're trying to kill me. I'm just defending myself. At the end of the day. Like, you're not gonna call it that, but that's what I'm calling it. You feel me? Like, you gonna just see me as a crazy nigga with a gun. but I see you as a crazy white man with a gun. So, what now? You feel me? How is that danger? How am I a danger to you? I'm not using this shit on nobody. You sent the drugs here. You sent the drugs to my peoples. You sent the drugs to the Latinos people. You sent the drugs to any other minority here and fucked up their community. But yet, we're the bad guys? You see how that doesn't make any fucking sense, bro? That shit doesn't make no sense at all.
21 years old, the FBI had placed an informant inside Hampton's inner circle, a man named William O'Neill, who had worked his way into Hampton's trust and become his chief of security. In December 1969, O'Neill gave the FBI a detailed floor plan of Hampton's apartment at 2337 West Monroe Street in Chicago, marking the exact location of Hampton's bed. On the night of December 3rd, O'Neill slipped Secobarbital, a powerful prescription sleeping drug, into Hampton's Kool-Aid at a dinner party. At 4:40,
bro, it can be your own kin. Once they see that badge, it's nothing to them. That's crazy. It's fucking wild, bro. And these are FBI agents, bro. These are FBI agents. How is the org? How? Hold on. I'm about to. All right. I just did like a lot of fucking research on that shit, and there's a lot on there, and I gotta finish reading more. But I want to finish this video first. There's a lot. Just look up why the government think the Black Panther Party was dangerous. That's what I found, and just look up. Or I think it was on the FBI's vote. That's what I found, and there's a lot of documents on that bitch, release documents on that bitch, and yeah, it's a lot, bro. It's a lot. I'm only on the first documents, and it's like a lot of fucking shits on that bitch. I ain't gonna lie. So you're gonna be scrolling for a minute. I ain't gonna cap. But we gotta get back into this.
4:45 a.m. on December 4th, 1969, 14 Chicago police officers, coordinated by the FBI, entered the apartment. They fired 99 shots. The Panthers inside fired 1. Hampton was in his bed, unconscious from the drug O'Neill had put in his drink, and was shot twice in the head at point-blank range while he lay there. A forensic investigation later confirmed that nearly all 99 shots were fired inward into the apartment, not outward by the Panthers. His girlfriend, Deborah Johnson, 8.5 months pregnant with his child, was dragged from the bed beside him and forced to walk past his body. One officer was heard on a recording made that morning. He's good and dead now. Fred Hampton was 21 years old. In 1982, his family received a $1.85 million civil settlement from the city of Chicago, Cook County, and the federal government. Not one officer was ever convicted. Case 4. Emmett Till.
I remember Emmett Till
was born on July 25, 1941, in Chicago, Illinois, and grew up on the city's south side with his mother, Mamie Till. In August 1955, at age 14, Emmett traveled to Money, Mississippi to spend the summer with his great-uncle Moses Wright. His mother had warned him that the South operated under different rules, and that a black child who said the wrong thing to a white adult could be killed for it. On August 24, 1955, Emmett stopped at Bryant's Grocery and Meat Market.
Wait, so they stayed there for 10 years? Damn.
Store owned by a white couple named Roy and
Or did they just come back and forth type
what
shit?
What exactly happened inside has never been definitively established. Carolyn Bryant told her husband that Emmett had grabbed her, whistled at her, and made advances. 3 days later, on August 28, 1955, at 2:30 a.m., Roy Bryant and his half-brother J.W. Milam drove to Moses Wright's home, dragged Emmett out of bed, and drove him to a barn on Milam's property in Drew, Mississippi, where they beat him. They then drove him to the Tallahatchie River, shot him once in the head above his right ear, tied a 70-pound cotton gin fan around his neck with barbed wire, and threw his body into the water. Emmett was 14 years old. His mother, Mamie Till, insisted on an open casket at his Chicago funeral so the world could see what had been done to her son. More than 50,000 people came. At trial in September 1955, an all-white jury deliberated for 67 minutes and acquitted both men. One juror later said they had taken a soda break to make the deliberation look longer than it was. Protected by double jeopardy,
Bro,
the
what?
law that says a person cannot be tried twice for the same crime, Roy Bryant and J.W. Millam sold their full confession to Look magazine for $4,000 in January 1956 and admitted to everything in print. In 2008, Carolyn Bryant told a writer that she had lied. The part about Emmett grabbing her and making advances, she admitted, was not true. She was 83 years old. She died on April 25th, 2023,
And I smoked on her pack that day. Fuck you talking about, nigga? Smoked on your pack, and that shit was good as hell. I was high as fuck, nigga. Fuck your homie dead. Fuck your homie dead. Fuck you, nigga. Fuck your husband. Fuck that brother. Fuck you. All y'all niggas burning fucking hell. Fuck you talking about?
without ever facing a charge. Case 5. Harry and Harriet Moore.
Nah, I never heard of these guys before. I'm not gonna lie.
Harry T. Moore was born on November 18, 1905 in Houston, Florida. Harriet Vida. Sims Moore was born on June 19, 1902 in West Palm Beach, Florida. They married on Christmas Day, 1926. Harry became executive director of the Florida NAACP and spent decades registering black voters, investigating lynching, and pushing
Oh,
for
I do know these guys. Okay.
prosecution of white men who murdered
I never
black
seen what they
Floridians.
look like.
By 1950, he had helped more than 100,000 black Floridians register to vote. The Ku Klux Klan considered him one of the most dangerous men in the state. On Christmas night, December 25th, 1951, also Harry and Harriet's 25th wedding anniversary, the two of them lay in their bed at their home in Mims, Florida. At 10:20 p.m., a bomb planted directly beneath the bedroom floor exploded. The blast threw Harry against the ceiling and collapsed the floor beneath them both. Neighbors rushed to the house. The nearest hospital could not treat them. It only accepted white patients. The nearest hospital that would treat black patients was nearly 30 miles away. Harry T. Moore was loaded into the back of a car and died on the way there, in his mother's arms. He was 46 years old. Harriet was taken to a separate hospital where she lingered in severe pain for 9 days. She died on January 3rd, 1952. She was 49 years old. Their daughter Evangeline later said, "They killed both of them. They just took longer with Mama." 5 separate investigations were conducted over the next 57 years by the FBI, the Florida Department of Law Enforcement, and independent researchers. Each identified suspects, most of them Ku Klux Klan members from the Orange County chapter. Each investigation ended without charges. Suspects died. Witnesses recanted. Evidence went cold. One pattern became undeniable. During the very years Harry Moore was being bombed, the FBI was spending resources investigating the NAACP itself, the country's leading civil rights organization at the time, and treating them as a communist threat rather than the men who murdered its leaders. No one was ever charged. No one was ever convicted. Case 6. Vernon Dahmer. Vernon Ferdinand Dahmer was born on March 10th, 1908 in Kelly Settlement near Hattiesburg, Mississippi. He was a successful farmer, a business owner, and one of the most active black community leaders in Forest County. He had been trying to register to vote since the 1940s and been repeatedly turned away, a rare act of defiance in Mississippi, and spent years quietly encouraging his neighbors to register at a time when doing so could cost a person
Don't you
their
wanna
job,
vote?
their home, or their life. On January 9th, 1966, Dahmer drove to a local radio station and recorded an announcement that was broadcast throughout the day. He would personally pay the $2 poll tax that Mississippi required of voters for any black resident of Forest County who could not afford it. He wanted to make sure money was never the reason a neighbor couldn't vote. He signed his name to it on the air. Shortly after 2 a.m. on January 10th, 1966, Ku Klux Klan members led by Sam Bowers, the Imperial Wizard, or top leader, of the White Knights of the Ku Klux Klan of Mississippi, firebombed Dahmer's home and store. They threw cans of gasoline at the building and opened fire. Dahmer grabbed his shotgun, moved to the front of the house, and held the attackers back long enough for his wife Ellie and their children to escape through a back window. He inhaled thick smoke for the entire time he stood his ground. Vernon Dahmer died of severe smoke inhalation the following day, January 11th. Before he died, he said to those around him, "If you don't vote, you don't count." He was 57 years old. Sam Bowers, the man who ordered the attack, was tried 4 times over the following decades. Every jury deadlocked. He walked free each time.
Bro,
32
what?
years after Vernon Dahmer's death, in 1998, a Mississippi prosecutor reopened the case. Bowers was finally convicted of murder and sentenced to life in prison. He died there in 2006. Case 7. Jimmy Lee Jackson.
That's what I like to hear.
Jimmy Lee Jackson was born on December 16, 1938, in Marion, Alabama, a city in Perry County, where only 265 of the county's 5,202 eligible black voters were allowed on the official voting rolls. Jackson was a woodcutter and a deacon at St. James Baptist Church. He had tried to register to vote 5 separate times and been turned away every time. Historian Taylor Branch later called him the first martyr of the Selma voting rights struggle. On the night of February 18, 1965, approximately 500 people left Zion United Methodist Church in Marion and marched peacefully half a block toward the Perry County Jail, where a civil rights minister named James Orange was being held. A rumor had spread that Orange might be lynched before morning. Among the marchers were Jimmy Lee Jackson, his mother Viola, his 16-year-old sister Emma Jean, and his 82-year-old grandfather, Cager Lee, the son of a former slave. At the post office, Alabama state
for
troopers
real?
and city police met the march. The streetlights went out. Troopers began beating people with clubs. Jackson's family fled into Max Cafe, a small black-owned restaurant nearby. Troopers followed them inside, overturned tables, and beat Cager Lee to the floor in the kitchen. Viola Jackson rushed forward to pull the troopers off her father. Jimmy Lee lunged to protect his mother. One trooper threw him against a cigarette machine. A second trooper, James Bonard Fowler, drew his pistol and shot Jimmy Lee Jackson twice in the stomach at point-blank range. Troopers then beat him further as he staggered outside. He collapsed on the sidewalk in front of the bus station and whispered, "I have been shot. Don't let me die." He was driven 36 miles to Good Samaritan Hospital in Selma. While Jimmy Lee lay dying in the hospital, the head of the Alabama State Police personally walked in and served him with an arrest warrant, charging him with assaulting a peace officer. Georgia's chief medical examiner later concluded
didn't
that
assault
Jackson's
nobody.
wounds were survivable if they had been properly sutured, but they never were. A portion of his intestines was protruding from the wound when he arrived. He developed a massive infection. Jimmy Lee Jackson died on February 26, 1965. He was 26 years old. His death sparked a 54-mile march from Selma to Montgomery. On March 7, 1965, 9 days after Jackson died, that march ended in a bloodbath at the Edmund Pettus Bridge as state troopers beat unarmed marchers on national television. The images shocked the country
On
into
TV?
action. On August 6, 1965, the
Y'all
Voting
did that
Rights
shit
Act
on
was signed
TV?
into law. James Bonard Fowler, the trooper who had shot Jimmy Lee, was not indicted until 2007, 42 years later. He pleaded guilty to a misdemeanor and served 5 months in jail. Cager Lee, the 82-year-old grandfather who had been beaten to the floor at Max Cafe that night, the son of a slave, the man who had been turned away from the voter rolls, walked up to Marion Town Hall after the Voting Rights Act passed and received his voting card. He voted for the first time in his life. Jimmy Lee Jackson did not live to see it. Case 8. Rosa Parks. Rosa Louise McCauley. Parks was born on February 4, 1913, in Tuskegee, Alabama. She was a trained activist and the secretary of the Montgomery NAACP, who had spent years investigating racial violence across the South. On December 1, 1955, at age 42, she boarded bus number 2857 on the Cleveland Avenue route in Montgomery, Alabama, and discovered too late that the driver was James Blake, the same man who had humiliated her on the same route in 1943, forcing her off the bus and then driving away without her. She had avoided his bus for 12 years. When Blake ordered Rosa to give up her seat for a white passenger, she refused. She was arrested, fingerprinted, and fined $10 plus $4 in court costs, about $170 in today's money. Her arrest launched the Montgomery bus boycott, 381 days during which black residents walked, carpooled, and rode mules rather than board a segregated bus. The U.S. Supreme Court ultimately ruled bus segregation unconstitutional. After the boycott, Rosa and her husband Raymond Parks were both fired and blacklisted in Montgomery. They moved to Detroit in 1957, died of throat cancer on August 19, 1977. On August 30, 1994, when Rosa was 81 years old, a man named Joseph Skipper broke into her Detroit home and robbed her of $53, all the money she had. When she refused to give him more, he punched her in the face. She tried to fight back. He later said from prison, "I will go down in history as the man who robbed Rosa Parks." In her final years,
you proud of that?
Rosa developed progressive dementia. Eviction notices arrived at her apartment in 2002 and again in 2004. Eventually forgiven after public outcry, Rosa Parks died on October 24, 2005, at 7 p.m. in her Detroit apartment. She was 92. She became the first woman in American history to lie in honor at the United States Capitol Rotunda. More than 50,000 people came to pay their respects.
Hey, that's what's up though. I ain't even know that part. I ain't gonna lie. I knew she went to Detroit, but I ain't know when. That shit crazy though. There's a lot of stuff I didn't really know about. I ain't gonna lie. There's something I did know about, but the robber, the Johnson E. Jackson, I ain't know about that guy. I ain't gonna lie, but that's pretty cool. I ain't know that his grandfather was just like a son of a slave. That's cool that he actually managed to vote for real. I ain't gonna lie. This shit was actually pretty interesting. I ain't gonna cap. I like stuff like this for real. It's unfortunate on how they pass. For real. I'm not gonna lie. It's very unfortunate. No one deserves to go out like that. I'm not gonna lie. It's unfortunate that it's still happening. Like it's kind of died down. Like there's no segregation or anything like that. But this, you can tell that it's still alive and well. Unfortunately, unfortunately, it's still alive and well. But anyways, guys, if you like this video, make sure you leave a like, subscribe if you are new. Make sure you check out the Red Stickman. The link's gonna be in the description down below. That being said, I'm up out of here. Peace.